In my series on how to build an app, I talked about how to create an app startup team. We looked at the roles of the UX designer, the product owner, the project manager, and the software developer. Things will go wrong when you run a startup. If you're building an app, you will wake up one day and find that you've gone in the wrong direction. But if you still have a functioning team and you're all pulling in the same direction, you can recover from anything. In this diagram, the triangle there represents the throughput of the team. That area represents how much the team can deliver. There's 3 ways you can go as a senior engineer, a project manager, even a product owner or a UX designer. But whatever the role they have, let's imagine there's some issue affecting the product and leadership is required to fix it. 3 ways. The first is to assume that competence is the problem. We'll fix this with getting 10x engineers. Those are the engineers that are 10 times more productive than the rest. We've got the so-called 80-20 rule. We're talking about these mythical high-performance rock stars that are competent in every part of the work. In my experience, rock stars prefer to grandstand instead of doing the sometimes tedious work that's required. I've even heard them say things like, I'm not going to implement that feature, it's stupid. Instead, good engineers, they might not know absolutely everything there is to know, but anything that they promise that they can deliver, they have the capability and they say they're going to do it, they will deliver on that thing. Now, those folks are the best team members, in my opinion, because you can rely on them to get things done. All right, the second is motivation. I've got to get on these guys, I've got to ride them. It's very easy to feel that team members couldn't care less. However, it's not that they've willfully ignored requirements in most cases. As a product owner especially, or a UX designer, you've got front of mind exactly what it's supposed to look like. You know with great clarity what you were trying to achieve. You get that latest build, it's not there, something's missing or broken. And it just seems like, well, these engineers, they've got complete control over what was delivered, and yet it doesn't match what was given as the requirements. We might say, well, look, I'm going to get onto these guys and I'm going to waggle my finger at them and give them extra motivation and beat them up because they obviously just don't care. They're obviously just not trying. The third way is to assume that communication is the problem. Now, communication is a 2-way street. So it's going to require a bit of extra work. It's going to require a bit of humility, but it's something that you can change. If you think about the problems that a new leader in app development might have, there's that competence thing, for example. If you pinpoint that as the problem, it's going to take a long time to fix. You've got a whole hiring cycle. It could take months, potentially, before you get that fix in. And there's a question. How was that incompetent person hired in the first place? Motivation. It means going to war against your own team members. And it might feel gratifying initially to drag them into a room and yell and scream and shout and wave the phone at them and say, look, why is it like this? It's supposed to be like that. You goofed, you did the wrong thing. Well, that has a cost. And motivation in the form of sort of, things like generic pep talks, big all-hands sessions where the boss gets up and says everything is so important and we have to do it. And you bring in ranking of who's achieving and who's making mistakes or whatever. All the way through from those veiled threats to outright threats against people's employment. Those are ineffective. They are not going to deal with the actual problem. They're not going to find out what actually happened and what went wrong. People don't go to work every day to make mistakes. They don't turn up wanting to do the wrong thing. To find out what went wrong, you need to identify what has to change. You can start by asking questions. Asking questions and zeroing in on what actually happened. What were the behaviours? What were the actual facts? What was seen that people did rather than imputing particular motives. Ask the team members what they understood. The folks who were there, who touched the code, and even the ones who didn't, find out what was written down. What are the facts? What are the README files, the wikis, the coding standards? Ask them why they took the approach that they did. And ask those open-ended questions, not the ones that are designed, shaped like a question, but really designed to blame people. That way you will find out the actual cause of the problem instead of blamestorming or ridiculing. I like to keep notes. I think our memories are fallible. So when you go into a meeting, just explain to people that you're going to keep notes and type them up or record them. I'd advise not using the video recording feature. Instead, just take your own notes with either a notebook or in some kind of note-keeping application. And that way, if you start to feel inside yourself in that leadership regard that you just keep getting more and more excuses for why things went wrong, well, you can go back, you can take the emotion out of it and look through your notes and see, well, what did I actually say to that person? What is it that I asked them to do? Is this some new behavior, or is it something different? Endlessly trying to hire the so-called 10x engineers just results in churn. If you get somebody new in, they inevitably have to learn the ropes the same as everyone else, but it has a chilling impact on the rest of the team members. Browbeating the team members also doesn't work. Rating systems and ritualized blamestorming disguised as feedback, it just induces a culture of fear, and engineers start optimizing locally within their own working arrangements, possibly them and one or two good buddies, or just even them by themselves, just trying to make their own performance look fantastic by going for quick wins, rather than doing anything that's actually going to improve the performance of the whole team. Going back to that triangle, it gets constricted by the most narrow item in there. So even if you were to get those 10x engineers and motivate them effectively, if your communication is terrible, it's still going to limit that throughput and choke off the very lifeblood of that team. So it makes a lot of sense to start with communication. And communication is something that you can work on today, right now. You can step up as a leader and use your own communication skills and improve them by listening, by asking open-ended questions, by seeking facts, and looking for pathways to collaborate with your team so that you improve the situation